Hi friends, and welcome back to You Say Maize, I Say Blue. You know both of us. Wolves Sports Director Danny Sass on your right. Host of You Say Maize, I Say Blue for the past 3 years, Chris Cichon on your left. And Danny, great show as always, jam-packed and loaded. Middle of January. You can go ahead and say maize. I'm going to say blue, and I'd like to direct your attention to my blue shirt. Michigan School of Kinesiology. Just recently made a school last semester. Graduating May 1st, so I just thought I'd shout out.
Impressive.
Shout out to my peeps
nice
over there.
It's not as cool as my hockey jersey, Chris. You can go ahead and say blue. I'm going to say maize, and I just learned today that in Major League 2, Willie Mays Hayes is played by none other than Omar Epps, who is a dead ringer, in my opinion, for Mike Tomlin, who is the coach of the Steelers. Which brings us into our first topic. That would
I like
be Super
that line,
Bowl.
by
That
the
would
way.
be Super
Willie
Bowl.
Mays Hayes.
What are we on now? XL I. That's Super Bowl 43 for all you Roman numeral fans.
It's going to happen
Chris,
when we're 50 years old and there's like a million of them.
Dude, I can't even begin with my Roman numerals.
I don't know how that
Stat
goes.
Boy will get us on that. Chris, we're going to jump right in. Cardinals and Steelers. I don't think a lot of people saw this matchup coming, especially with your NFC representative. How'd they get there?
Well, I mean, nobody saw this matchup coming because the Cardinals are in the Super Bowl. Danny, the Arizona Cardinals are in the Super Bowl. Mm-hmm. This is the team that nobody thought ever in our lifetime would make a Super Bowl. This is the laughing stock, probably even more laughing, even more, ridiculed than the Detroit Lions.
Similar,
30 minutes away.
Plan,
very similar. And I mean, this is just great. It speaks wonders about Ken Wisenhunt and the hire that Arizona made 2 years ago when they brought him. 8-8 last year, 9-7 this year. But look at the way he just changed the culture automatically. I mean, it makes them a championship team, and he improves it right there in the trenches where he played, along with his top guy Russ Grimm, and they just totally transformed that.
What I think is cool about this is for a while now, we've seen them start to assemble the pieces. They bring in a guy like Kurt Warner to mentor a guy like Matt Leinart. They bring in that running game. They get a veteran like Edgerrin James, who is very underused and underappreciated there for a while. And then they had to split time with Tim Hightower. Next thing you know, he's back having a little resurgent postseason.
Wind up helping him in the end.
They built that offensive line. They built that wide receiver.
I called them all out by name last week, Danny.
Absolutely.
And look what the job that they did against those blitz schemes. Those blitz schemes from
21
Eagles.
21 for 28 from Warner. When you're completing passes with the efficiency that he is, got to give some credit to the line. And the passing game, Fitzgerald, Bolden, Breston, even Leonard Pope at tight end, these are all pass catchers. And when you have weapons coming out of the backfield, coming out of the slots, wide receivers.
Yeah, it's all got to work together.
And for a while, people have been saying, oh, this is, sleeper out west Arizona Cardinals, and, they'll do something like go 6-10, 7-9. They've never really had that breakout. And even this year, you could argue that this regular season was a disappointment, Chris. The way they finished, horrific loss to Minnesota, horrific loss to the New England Patriots, to the point where they had to play their starters just to enter the postseason on the right page in a otherwise meaningless final game against Seattle. So they slumped into the postseason. This comes as a surprise to me, and it was almost devastating. Up 24-6 at half to blow that.
But not at home. They really held on. That 8-minute plus drive in the fourth quarter that Kurt Warner led, I think, just shows how strong he has been. Now 37 years old. 10 years ago, remember, he was with the St. Louis Rams and winning the Super Bowl there. So it kind of bringing it full circle for Kurt Warner these days. And I mean, credit the team. Don't just talk about Wisenhunt and Warner. How about the whole team in general? You talked about the slide they had after starting 7-3. I mean, the way those guys, especially in the trenches, you got to look at the trenches when it's in January.
And apologies to the Steelers here, who we didn't even get to talk about, but I think they're pretty much a known commodity at this point.
We know them.
Obviously, Big Ben, you have Hines Ward, who's a stud. You have Willie Parker, and that Steel Curtain defense is going to be a great matchup.
We'll see what happens.
Offense on one side of the ball, defense on the other. What more?
I don't think fans and analysts are going to be overlooking the Cardinals as much as they did through the first 3 rounds with Arizona. So look out for Arizona in the Super Bowl. Let's talk about one player specifically on the Cardinals, Anquan Bolden, Florida State alum. And Danny, I mean, he had a little sideline altercation argument there with offensive coordinator Todd Haley.
This is so much ado about nothing at this point, Chris.
I agree.
He's not selfish. He came back from a horrific facial fracture injury.
Among other injuries in that hit.
And keep in mind that this is a guy who deserves a new contract. Very rarely do I side with the player in cases where, there's a contract holdout or a contract dispute. I mean, but Bolden's been a stud in this league for a while now. He deserves a new contract. He hasn't gotten one from management, and this has been a stingy franchise in the past. He still came into training camp but albeit a bit late, still performed at an unbelievably high level. 89 receptions this year, over 1,000 yards, over 10 touchdowns, and he did that while missing a few games because of those facial fractures. He's dedicated his heart and soul to this team. He's not quitting on them. I think he was just upset about not being used in a crucial stage of the season, and maybe that's
I think what it was.
Issue. Maybe it's a personnel issue. Obviously, Breaston a bit faster than Bolden at this point with the hamstring. But he had a right to be upset, and he didn't let it cloud.
It's two competitors trying to get to the ultimate final stage in the game of professional football here, and I mean, you can't blame the guy for wanting to play and be in that game, but then you also can't blame coordinator Haley for saying, no, you're not at full speed, you're hurting us more than doing good. So I mean, it goes both ways. Plus, I mean, Todd Haley, a guy that's interviewing for the Oakland Raiders job right now, the only job open, so got to give him some credit there. Plus, I mean, the players in the locker room, they know what Anquan Bolden brings to that team. They know what his toughness is all about, and they know he's going to be ready to go in 2 weeks down in Tampa because of the biggest game of everybody's life.
And when you have two receivers like the Cardinals have with Bolden and with Fitzgerald, it's sometimes hard to realize that they are two different people, two different personalities. Bolden's his own guy, Fitzgerald is his own guy. So
they need both to be
effective.
So
often, though, they get talked about as what a great receiving core. These are two unbelievably great individual football players.
And they have different styles.
And they have very different styles. Bolden's a guy who can take that short pass
and run with it.
Gone.
Run with it, yeah.
Fitzgerald's the guy where you get him downfield in single coverage, and he's going to catch every single ball. These guys are studs. They're going to be a problem for that Pittsburgh secondary.
Oh, yeah, definitely. That's the matchup I'm looking at. Cards offense.
It's going to be great.
Yeah, that's going to be crazy.
We're going to move along now. Staying in the NFL, but looking at the head coaches, Chris, the Lions have hired a coach, the Jets have hired a coach, the Rams, the Bucks. Only the Raiders are left, and Chris, there's a little pattern developing. I don't know if you've known it or if you've seen it, but all these guys that have been hired in the last few weeks, defensive coordinators, do the Raiders follow suit?
I don't know what the Raiders are going to do because there's a guy by the name of Al Davis running that organization. You just never know. You can't predict what he's going to determine. So who knows? There's a handful of candidates he's still looking at. We don't know. How about that Buccaneers situation? I want to talk about that because it happened so suddenly last week, at the end of last week. I
was away for it. I didn't even know what happened.
Well, here's what happened. GM Bruce Allen, they decided, the Glazer brothers that own the team decided he's gone. Also got rid of John Gruden. Buccaneers the past year started 9-3, and they wound up missing out on the playoffs. So, first team ever, I believe, to do that. So it kind of speaks to where the Bucs are headed. After he won the Super Bowl his first year in 2002, Bucs haven't been the same. Basically, a mediocre team. Now, then, look who they hire though. They hire 32-year-old Raheem Morris.
I've never heard the name.
A couple months ago was just a defensive backs coach for the Bucs. Christmas Day promoted a defensive coordinator, and now he's head coach of the Bucs. 32-year-old, no head coaching experience. A lot of people are crying.
People said the same
what
thing.
Kind of move is this?
People said the same thing about Mike Tomlin as the successor to.
And it worked out, didn't it?
It worked out
because they're
fine.
saying this is a defensive-minded coach, so it fits with the mantra here in Tampa. Plus, I mean, he's young, he's energetic, and they're saying, outside people don't really know him, but on the inside, if the Glazers think he's that qualified, then let's go with the Glazers.
The thing that worries me is this is a team that fell apart toward the end. Maybe it's not coaching. I mean, I think the Jets made a mistake by letting Mangini go.
Right.
You can't point when a team falls apart. Maybe it's not the coaches. Of course, it could be, but maybe it's the players.
It's the pieces.
I've loved Jeff Garcia, and I think he is an unbelievable quarterback, but he's old. Work done is old. Cadillac Williams is
injured.
You have receivers who are, who
Joey Galloway,
Joey Galloway,
Michael Clayton.
Do they still have like Ike Hilliard?
Ike Hilliard, yes.
He's an old guy.
These
ancient. Are old names. They need to bring in
some
young faces. Over the course of a 16-week season, a 4-week preseason, and all of training camp, these guys are going to break down in weeks 13, 14, 15, 16, and 17.
Yeah.
It's exactly what happened to the Bucs.
Yeah. I think Morris,
I don't think it's the coaching.
Morris is really going to give them a spark on the sidelines, but like you said, they definitely need to get some youth on that.
Are we cool
with
with Rex Ryan going to the Jets, Spagnuolo going to the Rams?
I like Spagnuolo. If you watch that news conference, he looks like a fiery guy, and I like that in my head coach.
Surprised he didn't go to the Jets, staying in Jersey? He was Giants defensive
Somewhat of a
coordinator.
surprise, but if you can get Rex Ryan, I think the Jets made a good move there.
Two very good defensive coordinators, well respected in the league. It'll be interesting to see how they do as head coaches taking over.